cold. Funny. Kids are really funny.
Yours
Yours was really bright.
yeah. Wow.
How's mine? Mine's not on it.
I don't know.
I don't think that's on.
The green's not on, no.
Just say something. Like, I can hear it.
No.
I can hear Cindy. Yeah. Mine kind of works.
Is your light on?
No, I can't get it to go on. Oh, now it is.
Sing for us.
But now I can't get it to go off. Sorry, Aaron.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I call to order the Monday, November 9th special meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. This meeting has been properly notified. Do we have any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? Is this working? Mr. Jekyll to the rescue here. Okay, now? All right. Oh,
Wow, mine's.
it's really on. Okay, I'll just start over again. Good evening, everyone. I call to order the special meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. This meeting has been properly notified. Are there any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? Anybody who would like to address the board, please go to the microphone. Tell us your name for the minutes, please. Welcome.
Hi, Zach Campbell. I am a physical education teacher and boys basketball coach here at the high school. I just want to start with thanking the board for all your time, the sacrifices you've made, the sacrifices your families have made through all this time, and all the work. I get a platform to thank all of you in person, so thank you for all that you've gone through with this. I might be the last person that you want to hear from, obviously, in the time that we're in. And I'm sure 2 weeks ago if I would have made this statement, but a couple things have happened in my life that have shed a lot of perspective in the last couple weeks. Without getting into too much detail, a couple weeks ago I was first on scene to a rollover accident that, had I been a handful of seconds earlier, crossed my line of path, likely the path of my family would have changed in time. Last week I had somebody that was given access to my life as a teenager that made a really positive impact on me lose their battle with cancer last week. And because these two instances have really just shed a lot of light on me, the inherent risks that we pursue every single day, and they've really revealed and confirmed a lot of the values. In thinking forward to the winter sports season, there's obviously been a lot of conversation in my house through our faith and family drives everything that we do in my house. So having a lot of discussions on, do we send my elementary kids to school and the amazing things we've seen from them and the work that their teachers are doing. We couldn't have been more proud of what's happened with them. My wife is currently 7 months pregnant, so obviously going into a winter season, we have those discussions as well. We just learned this past week that if I get quarantined, I run the risk of potentially not being there for the birth of our child. But our decision and our drive to serve both our winter athletes, our basketball community, their families that have all become part of our family through this journey, made that decision through a little bit of discussion pretty easy for us, that we're happy to continue to serve in that capacity. I've had a bird's eye view from the basketball boys and what they've done through all this time. Last spring when we didn't have a season, we got together virtually. They took a couple leadership webinars together, and we made actions plan as a team of what they look like to us because that was the access that we had at that time. This summer in July, we were granted access to the gyms to go 1-on-0. We had to split and spend more time than we usually do here in the summer to make sure that we accommodated the spaces for the students, all learning something new with the masking and the spacing that we did this summer, and our numbers were fantastic. This fall, it has blown me away. The breakfast club that comes at 6 a.m., the numbers we get, whether that's ETS or in our gym, we just have students that are striving and looking for identity and routine, and I think that's a big part of what I get to witness every single day with these students coming in and giving the extra time, because not only do they have it, they're looking for it and craving it. And then in our youth basketball, we've had 1st through 8th graders in for youth basketball in the last month, and we've had over 160 youth basketball players in, all masked, all spaced, adhering to guidelines, because we've all become known what the new normal is and what expectations are in this building from our leadership set. So as I close here, I just want to make sure everyone knows that these student athletes have already lost 3 weeks, or what's essentially a quarter of their basketball season. The WI season has already been cut 3 weeks shorter than what it already was. I fully acknowledge that the numbers in our area are not fun to look at currently, but I think when you look at the numbers in our building, it speaks to the great things that our students and that our leaders are doing in the building of keeping our students safe and providing them the opportunities that they crave. Working in the high school, I can tell you that students are craving routine. We have isolated students. We have students whose morale is down, and anything that we can provide as a district that doesn't mean leaving our district to go pursue outside opportunities and come back in is a win for us, in my mind. Again, I've had a front row seat to watching these kids build character, challenge themselves, and to see the joy on their faces as we have teenagers that are in a very crucial time in their lives in building who they're at. So as a board, I want to thank you again for the time and care that you've put into our students. And I have the utmost faith that as a winter sports coach and in conversation with our other winter sports coaches, that we'll do everything in our possibility to give these kids and their families what they need and what they crave right now during this awkward time and most important time of growth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zach Johnson. I'm a senior here at the high school, and I'm here to represent the boys basketball program and other winter sport athletes. Since the beginning of August, our varsity basketball team has played in 2 different basketball fall leagues. There are absolutely no incidences of any transmission of COVID from either of these leagues. Also, over the last several months, our team has met together on several occasions to discuss ideas that will help give us a chance at a very safe basketball season. We have agreed to have a very tight social circle within our basketball team, and over the next 4 months, we are committing to spending all of our time on court and off court together and to help keep us safe. Since the 6th grade, our seniors have been looking forward to this final year of basketball. We have worked extremely hard for many years in an attempt to reach the goals we have set out to accomplish. We have lost almost all our activities this year as a senior class, and with the end of our high school days drawing near, we're hoping you give us a chance to play the sport we love. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Rachel Randleman, and I'm a senior basketball player this year. I wanted to start off by saying thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I'm also very thankful to have been given a senior golf season this year, because without a season, we wouldn't have been able to make it all the way to sectionals. We were able to make it that far because we followed all the rules. We wore masks on the bus, stayed 6 feet apart outside and indoors, and did not share equipment. This worked out for other fall sports as well, because we're all dedicated and willing to give up multiple things for our sport. I know you're taking a large risk by letting us play our fall and winter sports, and we appreciate that. I have talked to all of our girl basketball players this year, and we have all agreed that we are willing to do whatever it takes to have as much of a season as possible. This includes being safe not only at the high school but out in public. We are willing to not hang out with different people or in large groups, wearing a mask at all times outside of our homes, and we are willing to quarantine if it comes down to that. Since I am a senior this year and am looking to play sports in college, it is important for me and others who want to play college basketball to have as much of a basketball season as we can for recruitment purposes. I have played basketball since 4th grade and have had some of the best experiences of my life. I have gained multiple friendships and have had amazing moments, like winning the conference championship last year. I have also learned many important skills such as leadership, communication, and time management. Since I played AAU basketball this past summer, I understand the importance of wearing a mask, spacing out, and having to limit the amount of games we have and people at our games. Since the girls' basketball team attendance is mostly parents anyways, I feel like it will be a normal season for us. In conclusion, everyone needs to do their part to make this work, especially now during the pandemic. Sports are so much more than just a game. The feedback that we have received from players and parents have been in support of having the basketball season. We appreciate your consideration and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I apologize, but I missed your name. Could you please tell me your name? Rachel, thank you. Are there any other visitors or delegations? Thank you. Then we are going to move on to information items. The first one is a learning environment update for the virtual eSchool for our hybrid students in grades 7 through 12, as well as our in-person students in grades pre-K through 6. Is there any additional information at this point? Okay. We are going to move on then to B, future considerations for a shift or pivot in learning environment. Mr. Benson, is there any?
Yeah, I would
at
just,
this point you might want to move in?
just to add what I think is probably the obvious, and that is that we continue to follow our mitigation efforts. We continue to follow not only our in-class and in-school mitigation efforts, but we also, a part of that process involves our exclusionary practices with close contacts. And so depending on a number of different things related to positive cases, the number of cases within a specific group, team, classroom, building, we anticipate that we will continue to make what we have been calling these surgical kind of decisions related to independent temporary closures. There's obviously the possibility for a permanent closure K-12. We're monitoring that closely. Our principals, our school nurse, along with the Department of Health, are certainly more than busy these days, having a hard time with the close contacts. I know at the DHS, because of COVID, they are having difficulty to meet their standard of communicating with all close contacts within a 24-hour period. We are assisting with that when it involves our school staff or students, and we will continue to make those independent kind of surgical decisions, whether that's in part by building, as we did recently at Rocky Branch, our football team, and if the day comes that we have to make those kind of pivots or shifts or decisions with our entire district, we continue to monitor those matters very closely every day.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to action items, and the first one is to consider and determine any pivot from the hybrid learning environment, any changes to athletic or co-curricular programs, spectator updates, any details that are held within the Wildcat roadmap. Mr. Benson.
I guess I should stay put by my microphone. So at this point in our agenda, we always go through a series of PowerPoint slides. Hopefully my selector will work here. That's a reference to 2 dashboards for our 2-county area. We've talked often about attempting to find the right kind of balance between the risks associated with COVID, as well as the social, emotional, physical, and academic best interests of our students. I put a new slide on. This is a snapshot from the state level. Lots of different statistical details here. St. Croix County, active cases. Pierce County. University, still holding their own on the positivity rate through their comprehensive testing model. This is the Harvard model, our Minnesota model. This is the dashboard where we're always pointing out the bottom left part on this next slide, because the bottom left on this slide shows all of the schools in Pierce County, whereas this slide then takes those numbers from the entire county and shows where we're at within our district. Positivity rates, we were once at 4 or 5%. Well, we were once obviously lower than that, but those numbers are increasingly concerning. And then this is a slide that we typically really jump to that provides the snapshot for internally within our district, indicating where we're at with quarantine, those staff who are not able to work because they've been identified as having close contact. The isolation is staff not able to work because they are seeking a COVID diagnosis or a member of their household is. Currently, we do have fewer than 5 staff members. Overall, we've added this now. I don't think I had this in the past. Total on the year is the 16 listed there. So then we go through similar comparisons with our students. And again, we've added the total here down at the very bottom where we have fewer than 15 students. Current on the year is 3 total test positives. Again, same slide that we talked about a week ago, and we've all been hearing and reading and watching media reports related to hospitalization in the Twin City metro area, which affects us largely, beds and staffing levels, nursing home, long-term care facility outbreaks. I mentioned public health, concerns with their contact tracing, delays in not being able to do that all within the 24-hour period. And the DHS's advice to cancel all non-essential activities. So, with all of that, the big decision the board has before them tonight is making decisions moving forward on both our music department here at the high school as well as a sport program. And so, in coming to my decisions related to putting forth a recommendation, it certainly has included a lot of input, a lot of listening to various stakeholders. Obviously, looking at the COVID statistics, weighing that against what we see to be and what we believe to be in the best interest of our students' social, emotional, academic, and physical well-being. It's a tough call. It's not an easy one. Might be one of the most challenging recommendations that I've ever faced in my career because of, I think we all know why. There's risks with COVID. There's risks with having our students isolated and not being able to participate in things. I provided the board with over the weekend a longer document. I tried to summarize it. You have a copy before you. And Aaron, can you open that link? And the superintendent did not give you access to that link, or what? That's fine. We have copies here, and we'll make it available to everybody later. I'm not going to tinker with that right now, but I'll go through a few things. And what I've done is, this document was somewhat therapeutic for me, I would say, because I tried to encapsulate thoughts that I had related to the decision before us tonight. And so on the list, on this document, there's some questions with some answers to those questions. And in this case, those answers are sometimes factual and sometimes, no doubt, opinionated. But I'm not going to read the entire 7-page document, but I would like to share with you a couple of things that I think are most relevant that at least to me, are important that I say publicly before bringing forth this recommendation, and that is, number one, there certainly is no denying that there are risks at play related to COVID. There's no denying that. Don't waste your time trying to talk to me how there might not be risks, because there are. We all understand why this is a challenging decision for the board. We know that we're attempting to balance those social, emotional, physical, and academic best interests of our kids with a pandemic. There's some people that think we should have kids in school 5 days a week. There's others that think we should completely shut down. What's at stake for some people appears to others to be trivial or selfish. To others, there's dreams and passions and opportunities lost that can never be simulated any other way in life. So we're left with the task of assessing risk. And sometimes assessing risk is a little bit science and a little bit art. Things are not always black and white. There's gray in the process. We can look at statistics, but yet some factors, there might not be a wealth of statistics to measure by. And I don't think that we should forget that there's a lot of COVID risks, many COVID risks that people take every day. We're bringing our K through 6 kids to school 5 days a week. It's amazing the few number of cases that we've had with our youngsters. We've been doing well. Give credit to our teachers and our support staff. They're doing amazing work every day, both to teach and to keep our kids safe. You know, our kids, K-5, they're in school every day. They're playing together in their neighborhoods. They're visiting relatives. They're playing in lots of non-school related athletics, staying at friends' homes. Adults are going to work, buying groceries, attending church, shopping and dining. Well, many of these are choices that are not in the control of this school board. They illustrate some of the risks that everybody takes every day. And so we're all assessing risk, and we're trying to mitigate the risks. And that's where we are right now with our lives and where we are here at the school district. Don't ever forget that as we're making our own decisions and our own choices with risks, those choices that we are making can also affect other people. Another question to be asked: what specifics should be considered when we talk about students' best interest? So I often recite social, emotional, physical, and academic best interest. That's my party line. More specific to that, student experience stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, abuse and neglect. They don't have opportunities. They may turn to drugs and alcohol. We've certainly lost a big part of our learning opportunities. There's no doubt. It's not the same this year as it was pre-COVID. They've lost peer interaction, teenage experiences, life experiences, memories, and feel some of their goals slipping from their grasp. So to back up some of those statements, there's a UW-Madison research study that was done. It was basically done after we shut things down last spring. It was done by UW-Madison and was issued by the WIAA, and although there are flaws within that study, it has not been peer-reviewed. It certainly talks about student athletes reporting increased stress, anxiety, depression, and a loss in their quality of life. Since last March, high school students have already lost opportunities to perform music, attend prom, engage in spring sports, homecoming, graduation ceremonies, senior lock-in, shortened sports seasons, lost forensics, lost FFA opportunities, and mock trial competitions, and the list goes on. How long some of our decisions can last or will last has yet to be seen. Will canceling winter sports stop events from occurring? Whether we have school sports or not, students will continue to participate in athletics. There's a host of community and regional clubs that exist for gymnastics, soccer, basketball, wrestling, football, hockey, trap, physical training camps, clinics, tournaments, and so on. Maybe, just maybe, our mitigation efforts could be more safe. Is the cure worse than the disease? Do we hold differing opinions about that? Obviously we do. Perspective matters. Everybody has a different view. If our mitigation efforts are too extreme, we run the risk of having the cure become worse than the cause. If we go too far with our activities and ignore mitigation efforts, we become careless and selfish. The emotional, social well-being of everyone is at play with this decision tonight. Assessing risk is sometimes, again, a bit science, a bit art. Things aren't always black or white. They're very, very gray. When considering safety, we should not suggest that one answer is safe and the other is not. Safety comes on a continuum, and there's a risk for sickness and injury and illness and death in all aspects of our life. Music and athletic opportunities provide those opportunities for learning about commitment and teamwork and pride, sacrifice, setting goals, belonging, building confidence, self-esteem, accomplishment, and learning what it means to truly develop strong work habits. Opportunities build character. So what are other districts doing in our area? Are they going ahead with chorus and band and sports? Last week I spoke with New Richmond, Eau Claire, Menominee, Rice Lake, and Hudson. They're all advancing and doing more in their music programs than they had earlier in the year. Sports, this last week I surveyed several districts, including Eau Claire, Menominee, Rice Lake, Hudson, Prescott, Ellsworth, Osceola, Somerset, Baldwin, St. Croix Central, and Chippewa Falls. They all intend to move forward with winter sports. Chippewa Falls is on a delay now. They went complete virtual, but depending again how things go, they too will make surgical decisions as they move forward. Menominee, I know, has a board meeting tonight where they've gone virtual distant learning with their high school students, and they're going to decide for how long that will be and to what extent that will affect the remaining portion of their fall sports season. So if we're going to go ahead with this, we best have a real strong mitigation plan, and we better take it very, very seriously, and we better follow through with it. So I have some specific recommendations that fall in line with what those additional mitigation efforts would be. Specific, number one, with sports. If players are going to participate, we're going to ask and require that players and parents sign a compact, an agreement. It's an agreement attached to our athletic handbook designed for the purpose of self-governance and compliance with any and all of our mitigation efforts. The compact is going to include all of the COVID mitigation efforts that we're going to expect at practices and games, and I'll go through those in a minute. But this compact is also going to include that athletes will commit to reporting COVID symptoms to their head coach and to their COVID coach. I'll talk about that in a minute. And that they'll work with public health officials to take appropriate precautions to prevent the spread of an infection. Athletes in our hybrid model may not self-quarantine. They can't be absent from school and then participate in practice or compete in games. We won't be allowing that anymore. COVID coach. Every team is going to have a coach assigned from their existing staff as the COVID coach. The COVID coach is responsible to collect all of the signature compacts along with our athletic director Ensure that masks are worn at all times. Games, practices, huddles, sidelines, buses, you name it. Let's talk about that for a minute. What do you think that's going to look like on the wrestling mat? You think the mask is going to be on 24/7? Probably not. You think in a basketball game, it might happen that a mask is not on somebody's face and the entire time because of a foul or a situation that occurs, and we understand that and we get that. But you're going to wear a mask all the time. You're going to do your best to wear a mask all the time. And it's going to be enforced. We're going to screen every player before practice and before a game to include a set of questions related to COVID symptoms as well as taking a body temp scan. It isn't the sole determining factor that we aren't running a COVID test here. We're taking your temperature. But it's an indicator, and we think that it's smart for us to take that extra measure. We're going to expect bus seating charts would be established so that we can contact trace appropriately when needed. We're going to monitor practices and games and matches to ensure that physical distancing on sidelines and in huddles and in bleachers, whenever we can, we're going to meet that social distancing. Again, I could cite a couple of sports where we can imagine that might be a little difficult. It would be pretty hard to put somebody on their back and not have social distancing and have social distancing involved. All the other things that go with it, from monitoring hand sanitization to sanitizing equipment. We want our kids to think about staying in your own pod to the extent that you can at lunchtime. Stay in your bubble as much as you can. Follow all the recommendations that are outlined by the WIAA along the lines of these mitigation efforts. Music. We have new physical distancing guidelines that would allow down to 9 feet. We were sticking hard and true to a 13-foot rule, and we're able to do that in many, many, many classes. More than not, we can be at 13 feet. But in some cases, we can't bring the whole group together to perform, to work as a team, to cooperate, to know what it is to instill hard work and dedication, and all those skills that I mentioned earlier, if they can't get together as a group. In classes where the 9 feet rule is not attainable, students will be grouped into pods, 4 to 6 students depending on the teacher at their discretion, but the distance between each pod, each group, we're going to ensure that will be no less than 9 feet. Masking requirements at all time. Yep, you play an instrument with a mask on. There's a way that we go about doing that. A separate mask will be worn for music classes than what you wear throughout the rest of your day. The same holds true for athletes. Teachers will store those masks in a large bag, keep them separated and washed weekly. Bell covers will be worn on brass and woodwind instruments. We have our HVAC, our air circulation system is going to be set to completely recycle the air every 15 minutes. That's a part of making sure that we're removing aerosols and bringing in fresh air. Hand sanitization, and so on. We've reviewed all of these with our music department. Lastly, closing remarks. Safety for our staff, our students, and our community is at play with this decision. So too are the aspects of social, emotional, physical, and academic interests of students. Both sides of the coin place a heavy weight on the scale of balance as we attempt to find a way how we are to live within this era of COVID. To be clear, I am not in favor of rushing irresponsibly into making recommendations that contribute to any person becoming sick, hospitalized, or dying from COVID, nor am I minimizing the virus. Nor am I suggesting that we don't care about vulnerable populations. In fact, that's exactly the concerns that make this a very challenging decision. My perspective is not dismissive of other perspectives. In fact, I share many of the thoughts and opinions of many stakeholders that I've listened to. Do kids need to interact with their peers, perform music, and play sports? Do we shelter from these activities due to COVID and wait for the end of COVID to come? What have we learned over these past 7 months? And how will we apply that learning to our decisions moving forward? My recommendation tonight is to move forward with music, chorus and band, in grades 6 through 12, and to move forward with winter sports with very clear mitigation plans, and that we hold each other accountable to follow those plans. Everybody needs to understand the likelihood of temporary suspension or a permanent shutdown that could result from COVID. Everybody also has to understand that sacrifices and trade-offs are associated with all of this. Everybody has to be accountable to each other. And I think about our Wildcat way and our character and how we must hold each other accountable to be good citizens and show compassion and cooperation and respect and be honest and responsible, if in fact the board chooses to move forward with these recommendations. Thank you for your time.
Okay, before the board are recommendations regarding band, choir, and winter sports. This is time for the board to have discussion. Todd, are you?
Yeah,
I can't tell.
I've said it the last few weeks. I don't feel any differently today. I think some of the comments that were made by the students and coaches summarize the thinking I have in regard to, just the burden of the number of opportunities that have been taken away from kids and the length of time this has gone on. I would say my view has probably changed over the course of 6 months or 9 months to the point where, I'm weighing the benefits that go along with these activities heavier than I am the risk, and I would support moving forward with the recommendation for that reason. I feel like we've crossed a line for me where the benefits are going to outweigh what I view to be the risk, and the fact that all of these people have voluntarily chosen to participate or not participate, to me gives a little bit extra layer of that they're accepting of that in my mind as well. So.
Amy?
Yes, I would like to just tell you that I'm in favor of going through with all 3 recommendations. I think the plans that have been put in place, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I think the plans that have been put in place are good. I like the compact that the students and their families need to sign, and because I just don't want the burden put on classroom teachers. So that being said, I do have one question about the WIAA though, and I do feel like we got caught in the fall with any playoff games and how the WIAA changed the guidelines. Is there anything to address that? I know that that's looking far ahead, but I don't want to get caught with that again.
Is that specific to the masking issue?
I think she's talking about spectators.
Yeah, I think the playoff requirement for the hosting the WIAA.
Spectators? Spectators with this proposal includes 2 tickets per player.
But
The other thing I did not mention, gymnastics when performing on an apparatus would not be required because of safety reasons to wear a mask. Mask could go over their eyes and they could tumble in a way that could cause serious harm. Additionally, they're able to socially distance themselves while performing those individual sports.
Thank you. Amy, I think your question was about WIAA and their spectator rules for postseason play when they don't match our expectations. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know that WIAA has made any changes to allow the home school to keep their rules going forward, but we could continue to advocate for our values in that regard.
I guess I would say it this way, and I don't know that this solves what you're looking for, Amy, that we could essentially put our foot down and say we are or are not going to do it. But if you think back to where we were, what would this be now? March, potentially early March, late February, that you'd be talking about some of these events happening. I mean, that feels, if I went back to July, it feels like 2 lifetimes ago for me at this point. So I think there's a long road in front of that to kind of lead into that decision. I don't know that I would change the way I feel about it today or try to put some sort of mandate in with that. I think we just have, I think we have to take that as it comes at that time, because I don't know what it could even look like for the WIA at that point either.
Yeah, I agree with you, Todd. I agree with you on that, Todd, but I just wanted to say that's something to be aware of, because just because the WIA kind of pulled a fast one on us in the fall, so it would be good to keep our eye on that and be able to contact the WIA if we needed to let them know our position on that. So I know that's down the road, I understand that, but I just don't want to get caught like we got caught in the fall. That's it.
Yep, fair enough.
I think we can keep up our advocacy and cross that bridge when we get there. I have personally reached out to the WIAA on that regard. Alan.
Yeah, you know, as I think about this is a tough one, and I think Jamie sort of prefaced this by saying this is really a hard one because it sounds easy, like we want to do an up and down vote, or are we going to participate or not participate, but this is a larger issue that's tied to all of the larger issues that we've had and talked about regarding safety. And when we talk about safety, it's important for me to remember that we're not just talking about the safety of our students. This really involves the safety of our students, their families, our faculty, our staff, and this community. So the decisions that we make as an organization that touches all of those very deeply, those are the decisions we've got to take care of. So when I hear comments, and I've heard lots of feedback, and I appreciate hearing from people about my student really needs to do this or wants to do this or deserves to do this, or it's really important for them. I get it, I understand that. I'm the father of 3 sons who went through this district. I get how passionate and close that is, but we need to remember that what we do in these activities affects so many more. And I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago when we were talking about, maybe it was even fall sports, that the responsibility here isn't just the school district. And once in a while, I have heard someone saying, well, if the school district says it's okay, it must be safe. For me, it's important to know that if you as parents want this to happen, then you're saying to me, I think this is safe. And that the excuse would never be, well, it must be safe because the school district's allowing it, the state allows it, the conference allows it. You as a parent and you as a family have decided that you're comfortable with this and that it's safe. Just because we want something or deserve something doesn't make it safe. The other, I would say, and I've thought about this often because we've had a number of significant safety issues as a board we've had to deal with in my time on the board and spend money on. And I remember when we invested a substantial amount of money in previous referenda to provide security for our buildings, and as a result, it's harder to move in and out of our buildings now. You need to check in and out. We have more cameras around, cost us a lot of money for that. And I remember being asked at the time by people, has this been a problem? Why are you investing all this money and making it hard? Has this been a problem? No, but that didn't keep us from instituting those kinds of things. So I'm not as sensitive to the arguments that so far no one's got the virus, okay, with what we're doing. That carries some weight that says to me that maybe what we're doing is helpful and gets us there, but it doesn't ensure that this isn't going to happen, just like all the other safety things we do. You wear a safety belt every day, etc. Has this been a problem? Well, I just wear it every day because. So this is important. And then the last thing I would say, and these are just background, so I'm kind of putting my thinking out there out loud, is that as we lay down these guidelines and have laid down guidelines, these are rules just as if they were rules in a game. And that means that if they're rules, then we don't figure out how to get around them. Okay? You don't, because that's cheating, right? I mean, when there's rules out there, just because you can get away with it in a game doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It's not sportsmanship. So in a case like this, if as a school district we lay down guidelines, then that means for students, families, coaches, the people who support them, no getting around them. No trying to say, well, let's not report any contacts that we've had. Let's not do that. That's cheating, okay? It's game in the system. It's not what we're about. It's not what we're doing it. So if we do this and we're successful about it, it's because all of the good comments we've heard tonight, all of the good efforts that have gone in behind this have said that we're capable of doing this. We think it's a safe and reasonable path, regardless of how comfortable we are with it, and can move ahead with it. So, and then having said that about athletics, I'm especially glad that we're coming to some accommodation around music, and maybe we can continue to make some changes there. Music is an important one. I'm a little concerned that we've kind of lumped the two together now, music and sports, that somehow they're linked. They're separate things, they're separate activities, and we need to consider them separately. I'm really glad to see them being accommodated in this.
They will be taken as separate motions tonight. There will be separate motions for those issues tonight. Bob, I think I saw your hand up.
Sure. Like Todd, I've heard a lot of things over the past several months, and I continue to come down on the side of moving ahead cautiously with sports as well as music. I look at what students have lost. I look at what students need and balance that with what exposure they're going to have. I look at the parents' responsibility more so than any other year is just ratcheted up. Not only do you have to have your child at the sports on time and practice and all that type of thing, now you've got to worry about something completely different that we didn't even discuss a year ago. So not only is it, it doesn't matter so much so as the, WIA or the school or whatever says it's safe, as Alan mentioned, you as a parent are signing off on it. And it's also your obligation to reinforce what's being done at school. In other words, the mitigation efforts that are being taken at school, you will be an extension of that, and you will be carrying that out, because you're only as good as your weakest link. And if the parents aren't abiding by these social distancing, masks, restricting visiting and that type of thing, and it's just not going to work. So I trust that parents are going to be able to do this. I think they'll be committed to do this. The other thing I think about often is and I mentioned this when we discussed fall sports, is that part of this COVID mitigation that team coaches will be working with their players on, and the musicians, is there's a certain additional accountability that hasn't been involved in other years. In other words, other years, players were accountable to each other as far as taking care of themselves, not doing risky things outside of practice and that type of thing. But this is a whole nother level of it. I think there's an accountability that's going to be built in the team that's probably going to be another valuable lesson that's being learned here. One thing, so I side on the side of cautiously moving ahead with sports as well as music. One question I had back to Amy's point, Jamie, and you're talking with other schools, have they had some discussions as to how many people they will attend at all?
We have not had discussion with regard to winter sports, but I believe our athletic director, Raleigh, has been having some conversation with the other athletic directors, and they continue, I believe, to be on the same path where there was this uniform approach of 2 tickets.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say that definitively, as there are some non-conference games and so on, so I don't want to lie or give you the wrong answer, but I can tell you that I believe within our conference, they're going to hold true to that 2 tickets.
To me, that's very important, that we be on the same page with people that we're competing against, whether it be in music or in sports and that type of thing. If we allow 2, they should allow 2. I think they should abide by that. The other thing that makes me confident in going this way, and we've demonstrated already, and Jamie mentioned it earlier, is that if we have some situation, some type of outbreak, or some type of exposure that we think is excessive, such as the Rocky Branch situation or the football games, we can narrow down on those particular activities. We wouldn't cancel, for instance, all of winter sports if we had an issue with, say, the boys basketball team. We could be more surgical, as Jamie has mentioned that. I hope we never come to that. Absolutely hope. I hope every game comes off, every concert comes off, every music class can be conducted, all those types of things. But we do have things in place that we can be more restrictive. So,
if I can add, I know I had a lot to say earlier, but I'm not positive that I mentioned this, and Alan reminded me that with one of his initial comments that, for some, the risk of severe illness from COVID is scary, and the death of a loved one is a stressful thought for people. I can relate. I have a 63-year-old brother with diabetes and a mom with a bad pair of lungs and a very weak heart. If she got COVID, she'd die tomorrow. I get it. Our staff and our students, whether they're musicians or athletes or not, they also have stress. So I like to always use this 2 sides of the coin analogy about the social, emotional best interest of students and versus COVID. But if there was such a thing, there's probably a 3rd side, and that is that other people have stress and anxiety for a lot of things in this world, including COVID risks. And so let's hope that, however this board decides to vote tonight, that we're not here to pass judgments on others' perceptions and thoughts and concerns and ideas on either side, whether to proceed or not. Let's listen to each other and understand that, quite frankly, probably everybody is right.
Yeah, excuse me. Well, we clearly all agree on a lot of these details. There's no question about the importance of sports, the integrity of all the mitigation efforts that are being put in place, all of that. And I think by now many of you who have been listening into these board meetings have probably already understand our positions. And I guess for me, while I agree on all of the things that have been said tonight, and I appreciate the importance of all of the activities to the social and emotional health and so on, I guess I just really simply have a fundamentally different philosophy about what tips that scale that Jamie alluded to when it comes to the disease and the risk of a disease, of somebody getting seriously ill or dying, versus all of the other things on the other side of that scale. And I recognize too that for probably maybe many in this room, maybe everybody in this room, maybe you don't know somebody who's died of this disease yet. Actually, I can tell you that's not true for everybody in this room. And that's probably personally a part of why I land on the side I land on. All the data in my mind points to the fact that we are basically contributing to the spread of the disease. The numbers are just enormously skyrocketing. I mean, we had again today, the St. Croix County numbers, just between the numbers that were reported tonight and the very next update, which simply came a little later in the day, was over, I think, 200 again, with 2 more deaths added in St. Croix County. Similar increases in Pierce County. I don't need to go through all the details. It just, I think, comes down to a fundamental difference of the strategy of prevention versus remediation. I believe, I'm confident we could actually have prevented this virus from wreaking the havoc that it's wreaked in our country. But we haven't done that. And instead what we've done is we made decisions to move forward with things that have ultimately increased the spread of the disease, and we all see the effects on all of our personal lives and our economy and so on. So I just have a fundamental difference where I end up based on agreeing actually on all the details. So between music and sports, I think when it comes to the music consideration, we saw a lot of studies that went into the thinking about the music program, and studies that specifically addressed whether these things will help really significantly reduce the risk and even prevent the spread of aerosols and so on. So I actually support that decision to move forward with that. But when it comes to sports, and again, it's not because I don't think sports are important. I love sports. I played baseball and hockey. Those are my favorites. I've run 9 marathons. I absolutely love sports. I can't stand the fact that all of you students are potentially not being able to engage the way you want to and should in sports. But that is just a situation where all the mitigation we can put in place just simply doesn't have the impact, or it doesn't have the impact of really preventing anything, I don't think. I think it may reduce the risk, probably for sure reduces the risk, but we're still putting ourselves in a situation where we're almost certainly becoming part of the problem, I think. So.
Cindy?
Yep. I have a question actually for AZ Snyder. So I see you sitting in the audience over there, and I'm curious, do you have any perspective? So I can live with students and families making individual choices to take higher risks, right? The part that I struggle with is those decisions impact the community, right? The community in the schools and also the community and the community at large. Do you have any sense for adding music, adding winter sports? Do you have any sense for how that potentially impacts the community in our school, students and staff? And then on the flip side, how it potentially impacts our community in the River Falls, St. Croix, and Pierce counties?
Could you make that shorter? She's not quite as tall as all of you basketball kids. Good.
How's that?
There.
Okay. So I'm AZ Snyder. I'm the public health director for Pierce County and the fun police at this meeting and every meeting I go to. So I wish I could quantify this for you with some certainty, but what I can use as an example. So this fall on the football team, we had 10 cases associated with the outbreak, 1 coach, 7 players, 2 family members, which resulted in 172 close contact identifications, where students and family members and other close contacts were excluded from work and school for 2 weeks.
So it gets big fast.
Communicable diseases tend to do that, yeah.
Yeah. So the death rate in Wisconsin AZ is 0.9%, so basically 1%. That's 1 out of 100, right? So we're at 49 positive cases in the district so far, so we're halfway there. Because 1% is 1 in 100, right? So we're halfway there, and I realize it affects different populations differently, but if we keep adding things, and if we look at the numbers, the science and the data, and the things that other schools are doing based on the science and the data, ultimately, are we playing with fire here by just, I feel like we go just keep pushing on, and pushing on is why we're in the situation that we're in now, right? As a community, as a state, as a country. I'm not sure what the question is, AZ. I'm looking for your guidance here.
Yeah, so my guidance in summary is that Pierce County Public Health does not believe that we should continue with sports that involve close contact. And our opinion is based on a perception or a value that we want to keep school open in person for as many students as possible for as long as possible. It is not because we discount the value of sports. We think they're incredibly important. I was a high school and college athlete myself. I do understand the implications of potentially postponing or canceling sports. But we know from our experience in the fall that not only does close contact sports result in a lot of exclusions of students from school, but it also spreads beyond athletes into their family members. We've seen several instances of that. I do want to comment on some of the mitigation measures that Jamie brought up. I think that if you decide to go with sports anyway, I think one that is vitally important is ensuring that students who are displaying symptoms or have been close contacts of cases are tested. We do know of a sports team in this community, not directly affiliated with the school, that has a testing pact to prevent their players from being tested. And one was tested, and that family faced harassment from the team because they did go in to get tested. And because of that, the other players were excluded from school and from sports. I also think that it is vitally important that if we do go forward with this, that parents understand that if your child is identified as a close contact because of a sporting event, you accept it, you exclude for 2 weeks, and you're tested. Public health cannot spend hours arguing with students on the phone, being called bad names by parents, being threatened with lawsuits because the student athlete was identified as a close contact. So I would ask that the school board please consider that piece of education if you do decide to go forward with winter sports.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? You said a testing pact, and by that you meant they kind of had a pact among their teammates to not get tested, even if they're in a situation where they should have?
According to the accounts from this parent of the student who tested positive, yes, there was some sort of testing pact that all the athletes agreed and the parents agreed that they wouldn't be tested if they developed symptoms.
I would like to be able to just make sure that everybody understands a dimension of the compact, that should this go forward, every athlete and parent will have to sign a statement saying that they will commit to reporting COVID-19 symptoms to their head coach and appropriate medical providers. Athletes who test positive for COVID-19 will work constructively with the school district and public health officials to take appropriate precautions to prevent the spread of infection.
So that speaks directly to what AZ is talking about. Are there any testing requirements in the mitigation efforts, Jamie?
Testing requirements?
Yeah, that they let students get tested ever, or only if there's symptoms?
Only with symptoms. We don't have the, AZ, you can correct me, but I don't think that we have the ability to test every athlete, do we?
That's correct. I wish we did, but even the UW campuses are struggling with that. It would be challenging logistically and financially.
We can't mandate. I'm quite sure that we can't mandate as a board that people would be tested, and so the compact is written in such a way that they would report it to appropriate medical providers. One would hope that that means that they would follow through on appropriate testing, but the board has no jurisdiction to be able to mandate that.
Okay. I was just curious. How many, if you're a student athlete out there, can you raise your hand for me? Okay, and if you're getting together over the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever you celebrate, during the winter sports season, if you're getting together with family outside of your immediate cohort that you have right now, can you raise your hand for me, student athletes? The rest of you are staying home. There's 2 of you getting together with family, and the rest of you are staying home, not getting together with any extended relatives. This is the most disciplined group I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it seems like.
That seems really light. Okay. AZ, when you guys make your recommendations, do you consider just the physical health or risk of the virus, or do you also consider the social emotional impact on people, students, families, things like that?
So I'm the county's health officer, not the county's communicable disease officer. So we think about all types of health. You know, during regular times, the public health department spends more time and resources on mental and behavioral health than we do on communicable diseases, bar none. But I happen to believe that in this case, the risk to the whole health of the entire community, not just student athletes.
To minimize the crossing of our athletes with the students, there's probably 80% of our students in school. I only have how many student athletes there are from fall. I don't know how many winter sport athletes there are, so I don't have the exact numbers.
Home in a virtual distance learning, that would be one way that you had suggested in that email this afternoon.
Stacy, I was going to say one more thing. One thing that I kind of wrestle with too, you know, I certainly understand the recommendations that are made from the health department, and I mean it's very difficult to say. This is my own personal view of where that tipping point is in terms of risk for allowing these opportunities versus not. One other thing that I struggle with, you know, in regard to the comment that Cindy just made is, you know, we only have control of so many things as a school board in terms of offering those opportunities, but I think unfortunately we took so many things away from just a broad swath of community so quickly back in the spring that places like you know, businesses on Main Street can't afford to be closed now, even though the data says you should be. And kids have had so many things taken away that you unfortunately are at a point where you, in my mind, you can't afford to lose some more of this stuff because of all of it that's already stacked up. And I think if we say we are taking away these opportunities for the good of the community, it needs to be a lot bigger brush that we're trying to push out, and we don't have control of those things. But I think then we're saying we then support those businesses not being able to operate a certain way, and kids, whether it's kids being home from school and taking the employees away from those businesses, or saying we don't think it's good for the community for these businesses to be given the chance to operate. And I just don't think we have that.
It's dying down. Good.
So, Todd, I don't look at it that way, and I think this is part of the whole conversation, right, that everybody's having. I believe you control the controllables, and you take care of your little part, and you contribute any little way that you can to your community. And to feel responsible for the whole community or the businesses, that's not even on my concern list. It's not something that I have any.
I'm sorry that it didn't come to us sooner, but I'm pleased that we did take the 3 weeks in the interim to be able to come up with a plan that has broad support in terms of the music department administration, and that group was able to work in conjunction with EZ Snyder. So I simply point out that sometimes it pays to be able to take time for a decision-making process to be able to do it well and to do it right. And I think that the 3 weeks that we took afforded us that. So at this point, I make the motion to proceed with winter sports as scheduled by the WIAA. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Todd. Is there any further discussion? A roll call vote. Todd?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
I'm voting yes. Alan?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Cindy?
No.
The motion is carried. Athletes, I have some things to say to you tonight, because what you've witnessed is the board making a very difficult decision. If you're able to see that in our actions, good. My suspicion is you have no idea how difficult this has been for us to be able to get to this point. What I want to point out to you is that the board is taking a tremendous risk to give you an opportunity. And with that opportunity comes a great deal of responsibility, and that responsibility is on your part. Your responsibility as athletes has always been to take care of yourselves and your teammates. But now more than ever, that responsibility extends to the community. Because if this decision were simply about you and your emotional well-being and your ability to be able to play sports, it would not have been hard for us, because every person on this board wants only the best for you. But this decision is not just about you. And so I am pleading with you to uphold the responsibility to be good stewards of this opportunity that we've provided to you. You will need to do that in many ways, but one of the most important ways that you will do this is by signing and upholding the compact. Now, I know all of you have signed up for apps on your phone, and you just click that, I agree. All of us have done it. I do it without having any idea what we have just agreed to. That is not the situation now. If you are going to participate in sports, you need to go through that compact, understand every single portion of it, and commit to living up to it, you and your families together. It's that important. Even if every single athlete follows the compact to the letter, which I fully expect that you will, because that is what the expectation is, it could be that some of you will still contract the virus. And if that happens, I hope all of you will support your teammates and their families, and that you will then be responsible to the community, to the public health people, in terms of mitigating the spread. Mr. Benson already talked about the fact that sports is one of the places where our commitment to character comes out. That is, of course, the most important place for us, or the most important opportunities for you in terms of being able to learn and grow and live. And winning is of second